So we're sitting over at Iron Age. It's like, hey,
great place.
Shout
out Iron
Age. Absolutely.
Shout out Iron Age. If you want us to record over there,
Hey, absolutely.
One free dinner meal per family. That's totally fine for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man. But
next week we have all Iron Age.
Yeah. Hey, man. But I'm having that exact conversation with her yesterday, right? And, because she's getting ready to go off to college soon.
How do you feel about that? Scary?
Yeah. I mean, a little bit, but at the same time, it's like, we've raised her the best that we can, and she's going to end up living the lifestyle that she wants to live regardless. So I could be as frustrated as I want, but she's still going to do it. You know what I mean?
True.
So
I love that answer.
Yeah, no, it's
you can only hope that you raise them, the best way, and that if they ever need anything, they're comfortable enough to come to you. So,
yes.
Yeah,
I hope I can say the same, but man,
I know.
I got 3 girls, man.
Little, man.
Tough, man.
Yeah, I'm like, you ain't going nowhere.
Exactly. Trust me. The dating phase and all that stuff, man, it's like, ugh. Like, you're not allowed to date until you're a junior. I straight told her, it's like, hey, I would rather you don't date until you're a junior. That way you can see everybody else going through these phases of relationships, that first heartbreak, where they say that, oh, I love you as a freshman. Like, you don't know what love is, and then you see the heartbreak and then how they go about rebounding and such. I want you to be able to see all this stuff for yourself. That way, when you actually experience it, you know what it's going to end up happening.
Yeah.
So I told her,
that.
Junior year.
I want to know what love is. I want you to show it.
You're lucky I know the song.
Man. Come on, man.
Yeah, man.
All right. Brian got it.
Yeah. So I told her, like, junior year, you can date. And at that point, I feel a little bit more comfortable because, your GPA will already pretty much be established. You'll have a sense of direction and what it is that you might want to do. And then by that time, you're already seeing other people having experienced all these things. So after, you see all that stuff, we can go about talking through like, hey, this is what you might be experiencing when the time comes. And yesterday was like the first time that she legit opened up to me. She was like, do you have a boyfriend? I was like, no. I was like, of course. I was like, come on, you don't have to lie to me. If you have a boyfriend, I'd rather that you just told me. That way I could tell you, like, hey, this is what might end up coming in the near future. She was like, well, I don't have a boyfriend, but when I do have a boyfriend, I'll definitely let you know. I was like, okay, cool. So just having that little baby step with her. Okay, so what do you think about your relationship? If, modern day relationship, modern day love is completely different from what it was that I experienced when I was in love, right?
Correct.
Back in high school.
Correct.
Which never happened.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, man.
There's a backstory to this.
Yeah,
exactly.
All the girls he was with in high school, they all like, what?
Yeah. It was all lies.
It was the whole dream.
Radical truth.
Yeah.
Radical truth.
I'm telling you, man.
I never loved y'all.
You know what it was.
Yeah, man.
Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah. But the modern day love is completely different from what my definition of love was back then, which is why I say I never loved any of my girlfriends in the past, right?
Oof, you just broke some hearts.
Right, man. It is what it is.
You broke some hearts.
Yeah.
He only has one girl to impress now.
Exactly. Every dog has its day.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the definition of love now is completely different. Where when you said it's this quick thing.
Yeah.
After not even a month, people are usually getting sexually active and such now. So the love is a lot different than what we experienced in the past, and I think that as a result of the traumas and whatnot that we might have had, we pass that down to the next generation, and now they're seeking what they think is love, but it's more so just like a lust type deal. So they're going through these things, and they're being heartbroken, and then you hear about all these stars and such that have multiple partners and so on, and now the kids are trying to emulate that because now they think that that's the norm.
Yeah.
How do you guys go about navigating that kind of stuff? You guys have young daughters, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not really like a concern.
It's usually more like time out or,
Exactly.
Don't stick that up your nose.
Exactly.
Why? Why?
Exactly.
Because I love you.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I really love you.
Yeah, but that they come back from school, one day it's like, oh yeah, my boyfriend is like, wait. Rewind. Boyfriend. You don't have any boyfriends, trust me.
You ever seen that scene from Bad Boys 2? That is my favorite movie.
Yeah.
When that date comes, I will hit you boys up, and we're gonna whenever
How old are you?
Yeah,
You at least 30.
Yeah, exactly.
you ever been with a man?
Yeah, exactly.
You
Do you
want
want to
to?
Exactly. Oh, that's
I ain't going back.
Dude, I love that movie.
Yeah,
I
man.
know. That's
You
when Lana's at that age and she, brings the boy home. That's where I'm like, man. I remember, not to cut you off, bro, but I remember when my sister brought home her first boyfriend.
How old?
She was, I think, a sophomore in high school.
Mm.
I think she was a sophomore in high school.
Mhm.
Sophomore or freshman, one of those. It's real blurry. It's one. I know she was early in high school. So she brings him home, and then I'm in college. My brother MJ and I were playing video games in my room. They were playing like Madden or something, and then my sister brings in this dude, and we knew he was coming. We're like, oh, cool, all right, cool. Like we're kind of like looking at him, like
Start polishing the gun. And
I'm like, yeah. I'm like, okay, it's cool. All right, cool. I'm like, whatever. And I'm like, MJ and I look at each other. I'm like, oh man, I can't wait till Papa comes in here. Like, he's gonna give it to this dude.
Yeah,
I was like, it's gonna be crazy. And then MJ and I like smirking at each other, like, yeah, it's gonna be crazy. So him and I continue to play Madden. Dude sitting like on the ground just watching us. So we were chopping it up with him. He's cool.
Wow, you guys are sitting on the couch. And no.
No, you sit on the floor, homie.
You don't
sit on
deserve
the
that.
ground.
Yeah. You got to work your way up.
No, somebody's sitting there. There's somebody sitting there.
That's Jesus. Jesus is watching you always.
Jesus got next.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. So he's watching us play Madden, and then my dad walks in, bro. Okay, so my dad walks in, and when he walks into the door, like you obviously can't see this when you're listening to the podcast, but my dad walks into the doorway, just takes one step, he just stares the kid down for like 30 seconds.
Oh yeah.
He did not say a word, and MJ and I were both smiling, and then we're like, oh he's serious.
Yeah.
He just stared at him like this. Dude, it was the most awkward thing. We're like, oh damn, it is on.
He might die today.
He might. Yeah, no, seriously, dude. The kid was so scared.
Yeah, man.
And then after 30 seconds, my dad was like, hey, and then he shook his hand, and like after that, we were all like, oh god.
Yeah.
The tension.
Yeah, dude, it was like, dude, even MJ and I were like, yo.
That's a little Hershey's Kiss fell out.
Yeah. He dropped something. But that's what I imagine I would be when Lana's at that age. We're like, yeah, like.
It's legit, man. But at the same time, I think that when mine started dating, it was like one of those things that when I had my first girlfriend, I was a freshman in high school. Like my first legit girlfriend, right?
Oh, the past weren't legit. They were just not love.
It's the eyes. The eyes. They're talking.
Exactly, man. So, man, when I showed up at my first girlfriend's house and her dad was like, this fool was like 6'4", 6'5",
Sheesh.
like almost 300 pounds.
Muscle or?
A little bit of both.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Like he was built like upper body wise, but then he had like that pregnant guy.
He got that grown man strength. That's that grown man strength.
Exactly. So when I rolled over there, the experience that I had with him kind of like set the tone for me.
You mean when you biked over there?
I got dropped off.
Where you?
I got dropped off.
Where should I park this?
Thanks, man.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Don't touch the basket. Don't touch the basket.
Exactly, But man, when I got over there, he kind of received me with open arms, which was kind of surprising, right? So he's like, hey, all I expect is that you treat my daughter with respect. And in the event that you guys have any disagreements, don't put your hands on her. It's like, oh, I would never do something like that. I was like, okay, yeah. Do you like sports? I was like, yeah, I actually play football. Oh, okay. You're my type of guy. Yeah, you can take my daughter into the back room. Just leave the door open. It's like,
What?
oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, so, we're back there watching the movie, and every now and then her mom was, oh, okay. Yeah, they're still good. And dad was like, hey, everything good over here? Yeah. We're not even sitting next to each other at this point. We're like, cushion in between, and another cushion. Every time that somebody would come up,
That's funny.
But I think that experience kind of set me up for, how I was supposed to be going about the whole dating scene, right? Because I thought that I was going to be like the complete opposite, flip of the switch. I was like, oh no, you are not coming in here.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that can happen. If the
How
person
nervous
doesn't-
were you rolling up to the house?
Oh, dog, I was scared shitless. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie to you. My anal sphincters were, clenched, to max,
When he gets off the bike's still moving.
Yeah, because the first person that came to the door was the dad.
Oh,
And I was like, man, how do I go about navigating this? Like, hello, sir. And I think that, just that.
Here's your newspaper.
Exactly,
Walk away.
Yeah,
It's
but
Sunday. There's no newspaper.
yeah, I took the next door neighbor's newspaper.
I'm sorry I lied. I just got nervous.
exactly, But off of that experience, I was like, okay, it's okay to be cool, but the person needs to present themselves, in a good manner.
Yeah.
To where, okay, I can let this person take my daughter out and I don't have to worry about anything crazy happening.
Right.
Because overall, I think that everybody's concerned about their daughter's, safety. Moms are a little bit more lenient because they know how dads can be, right? My dad didn't want me to date, and he was restricting me from doing all these things. So then they go the complete opposite direction and allow the daughter to go about doing everything they want, right? But then the dad's like, I know how boys are. I was a boy, Yeah, So
Oh, you were, sir?
yeah, exactly. I went through this. Yeah, so I guess that experience was kind of like what set me up.
Yeah.
Not that long ago, we had a little incident, right? Tried to sneak out of the house. And it told me that she was going to be hanging out with a female friend, and she popped up with a little boy. And I knew the kid, right? But, I rolled up on her. I was like, hey, what's going on? So they were just sitting in the parking lot of a dang train station, like, playing on their phones. I guess the kid was, like, trying to collect a Pokemon from Pokemon Go or whatever.
Can I pause you for a hot second?
Yeah, man.
How'd you know?
That-
you
yeah,
left
that-
it, and
that-
how'd you find
That's
them?
exactly
Okay.
what I was thinking
Yeah.
too. I'm like, there's a backstory to this. I got to hear.
I turned on her location.
All right, fair
and I
enough.
sent it to myself,
Yeah,
and then I
yeah.
just deleted it. That way she didn't know that it was on there.
Shoot.
Hey, man.
Hey, make sure you don't send her
MacGyver.
this, don't send her this episode.
Yeah, exactly. No, man. But I told her, this is one of the stipulations for you having a phone on my plan. I need to be able to know where you are. That way if something happens to you, I can come and find you. She said, okay, cool. So she lied to me and said, hey, I'm going to be hanging out with one of my friends. Popped up with this boy. I rolled up on him, and she, ducked into the back seat. I was like, hey, man, one of your tires is a little bit flat. And the kid is, shaking. He's like, hey, man, have you seen my daughter? It's like, no. And shaking, legit, on the steering with,
No.
like a cop just pulled him
Well,
over,
so okay. Let me just paint the scene here. So you find them in the parking lot of a train station.
Yep.
You park elsewhere and you walk up to the car.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, got you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
But she saw me walking up, so then
Yeah,
she ducked into the back
yeah.
seat.
What
not
time
knowing-
is it? What time
Yeah,
is it?
yeah,
Oh, it's like noon. 1
Oh,
o'clock in the
oh,
afternoon.
what?
Yeah, so it's nothing crazy.
Yeah.
So it,
I was imagining it was like midnight.
That's what I
no,
was thinking too.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely
1
not. Because I actually gave her permission to leave the house, but to
Yeah.
hang out with somebody else that I thought that she was going to be hanging out
So
with.
what tipped you off that you needed to go check up on her?
So I called her, and
Spidey
I guess
sense.
I rolled past, and she saw the truck. So she's like, okay. And she hung up on me. Okay, weird. Called her again, same thing. So then I called her friend. I was like, hey, are you hanging out with her? I was like, no, I haven't seen her or talked to her all day. It's like, okay, very well. So I send her a text like, hey, you better answer this phone right now.
Yeah.
And then I rolled up on the kid's window, and everything just started going south from there. The kid lied to me.
Oh.
And
Brad's like, what?
yeah,
What's that smell,
yeah.
boy? So it's like Dookie in fear.
Yeah, man. So I rolled away after I said, "Hey, man, your tire's a little flat," because of course she had ducked into the back seat, and on all modern day vehicles now, the back seat windows are slightly tinted, so you can't really see in. So I drive away, and then I text her like, "Hey, you better call me right now." And then she sends me a text message back, responding to one of my previous text messages, and said, I called her. I was like, "Hey, where are you?" I'm hanging out with my friend. It's a boy. I was like, why didn't you just tell me that? I know this kid. Why are you lying to me about this kind of stuff? I said, well, I didn't think that you were going to let me hang out with him. It's like, the answer is always going to be no if you don't ask, So with that, I got over there, and she was already outside of the car waiting for me. And then she started, oh, Dad, I'm so sorry. I was like, hey, stop. Get into the truck. And then I walked up to the kid. I was like, hey, man, I don't appreciate the fact that you lied to me. And the kid was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Hey, stop. Just listen. In the event that you're dating somebody or, otherwise, you have somebody's daughter with you. You need to understand that the only thing that I'm worried about is safety, right? I don't know what you guys are doing. Hopefully it's nothing too crazy. But I'm only worried about her safety right now. And the fact that you were willing to lie to me, in this first encounter that we had, I don't appreciate it. I didn't talk bad about him or anything like that, but I just let him know, don't do that again. Future relationships, you don't want the person that you're dating's parents to think less of you just off of this one instance. So just be honest. If, she's sitting right next to you, or she's ducked into the back, like, yeah, she's in the back seat or whatever. I said, okay, get out. And then we can carry on. I was like, well, do you want to hear the story? Don't care to hear the story. Just go ahead and get out of here, man. And then, throw the little one into the truck. It's like, I'm mad, but I'm more so disappointed. Had to have that conversation, man. It was interesting. Yeah, because I think that she thought that I was gonna snap on her, which I felt like I was.
Yeah.
Because I got back into the truck and I was shaking, so pissed, And I'm biting my tongue at this point. It's like I have so many things that I want to say, but let me not say them right now because it's not gonna be coming out with love.
Ooh, love that.
That's good.
Love it.
That's good.
So
You went about that situation extremely
Yeah,
well.
seriously.
Yeah, man.
Like you get an A+ for
the
me.
fact that you even talked to the kid.
Yeah,
man.
and you
You know what I
coached
mean?
him, and
Yeah,
you were
you
like,
coached him
"Hey,
right there at
this
the
is
train
not
station."
even like me getting my emotions out. Now I'm telling you for the future."
Yep.
With your next relationship,
Exactly.
with the next parents of the woman that you think that you want to be with, that you might want to spend the rest of your life with.
Yep.
Like
Exactly.
that was golden, man.
Exactly.
Golden.
It's a respect thing, So,
Absolutely golden.
'cause,
And how old's he?
they got to be right around the same age, 17.
So you're talking. I mean,
Dude,
he's
that's-
pretty grown, but
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
talking to him like he's a
exactly.
grown man.
Yeah,
Like you're not
seriously,
talking to him like he's a kid.
Exactly.
That might
was
be one of
great.
the few times he was ever
Exactly.
talked to like that.
Exactly.
That
You
was
know, and
perfect.
then after Brian closed the door, he's like, "Oh yeah, your other 3 tires are flat too."
Because I still.
Because he's like with a knife.
Yeah.
Man, but I'm telling you, when I walked away from that situation, I was like, man, I have grown a lot. Right? Because the first time that I found out that my little one had a boyfriend, it was like, oh no, what the hell is going on with this? We are not doing this. And I was over the top, I'm not going to lie to you.
Really?
And then, just seeing the interaction and whatnot that we ended up having post that, I was like, I don't want that to, be the situation. So I sat her down and I talked to her. I was like, hey, you're getting older now. There's no need for you to go about lying to me. This is the lifestyle that you want to live it. I can only do so much. What I want you to understand is I'm trying to protect you from the things that, you don't know about. And, give you that guidance to where you might be able to navigate those waters whenever you encounter them. And she said, well, I can appreciate that, but I need to be able to go about making my own mistakes. I said, you can make all the mistakes that you want, but don't let it be one of those mistakes that you're not going to be able to recover from. So,
Life-altering mistakes.
So you give them the space to go about messing up, sure, but how much space do you really give them? And it's tough, man. Having the young daughters and such, you can kind of see the personality start to come out, and it's like, I might have to worry about that one. She loves to talk to the boys on the playground and such right now, and you see that, and then you go into that protector mode where it's like she is not going to be allowed to talk to anybody up until she is graduated from high school in college, and that's not what you want, because in my experience at least, all those that were trapped in the house for their entirety of the high school career and such, they go out to college and they don't know how to interact with people. And
They
the
get
first
bumped.
thing
They go
see-
wild. They go wild. Yeah.
I'm telling you, and that's the thing. I'm trying to shield her from, because I know what that looks like. I know the signs and symptoms, and I don't want that to be you. Yeah. The first interaction that you have with somebody is going to a college party. And, meanwhile, I'm trying to school her up like, hey, people do spiked drinks and all this other craziness, Talking to her about this kind of stuff now, that way she has somewhat of an expectation when she goes out.
Yeah.
Not for her to fear the world, but actually know what's in it. So talking to her about all these things, and she's kind of giving me some better feedback now, where initially I don't want to talk about this kind of stuff. Like, look, you're going to go off to college, and you're
Because I'm
probably
sure she's thinking about it too.
yeah,
For
exactly.
sure.
But trying to build up her self-esteem as well. You know, it's kind of hard to be able to do that kind of stuff, man. But it's like, look, you know, you're a beautiful woman, you know. And when you go off to college, you need to understand that a lot of times people are not looking for serious relationships, especially in those early years of college. They're just looking to have fun, you know. So what you need to recognize is the signs and symptoms of a good person. If you're not able to see good characters in the individual that you're dealing with right now, more than likely it's only going to get worse, because the lies and whatnot, they just become more detailed, you know, the older that you get and such. So you need to be able to spot what a good character looks like. And I told her, you know, the fact that you were hanging out with this boy, I've met him before, and you felt the need to go about lying to me about who it was that you were hanging out with. To me, that speaks volumes about the kid's character, because you're telling me that I can't trust him enough to say, hey, I'm hanging out with such and such. You know, and maybe she wasn't thinking about it like that, and I don't think that she was.
Right.
But the person that she told me, hey, I'm hanging out with this person, I ended up having to go back to her and say, hey, I think that you owe that person an apology. Because if something would have happened to her, you didn't show up on time, and now I'm calling the police. I'm like, hey, this was the last location that I knew that she was supposed to be at. And now they're going over to, you know, this person's house, and they're tearing it upside down, you know, looking for you. And they said, we haven't seen this person all day. And they're telling the truth. You know what I mean? So now I'm tarnishing this person's name just because this is where I think you are. You know, so do me a favor and do yourself a favor. You know, when it comes to you hanging out with somebody, you don't have to lie. You know, just be straight up like, hey, this is who I'm hanging out with. This is what we're going to be doing. Because you don't want to be that person that ends up in a ditch or something like that on the side of the road. Nobody knows where you are just because, you know, you didn't think to, you know, tell the truth to the people that are supposed to be loving on you.
Right.
You know, and, you know, it's a morbid thought, man, but it's sad that we end up having to go about having those kind of conversations, especially with young females.
Yeah, totally agree. And I find it so interesting that the same conversations and the same worries that we have with our kids are the same worries that God has with us.
Exactly.
And that's why, like, you know, there's all these rules put in place, you know, don't do this, don't do that, do this, do that, you know, and then we're just like, oh, why? You know?
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
no.
It's for your own protection.
Yeah.
You know,
And then here we are, like, in our youth going against our parents.
Yep.
But we also see that now as grown men and women also going against Heavenly Father.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. You
That's
know,
so good.
constant warring spirits. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's tough, man. And I think that I like that you brought that back up, man, because I think that one of the best examples of David being a lover was kind of when he was hiding out in that cave right after Saul tried to kill him, you know, twice.
Yeah.
And now he's hiding out in that dang cave, man, and he's with, I want to say it was like 100 maybe people in that cave, and now, you know, Saul knows that he's hiding in there, so they're about to start pursuing him. And Saul goes about, you know, questioning who was it that, you know, betrayed me, letting David get out of here. And it was the priests that were having like the one-on-ones with him, you know, and the priest had ended up conveying to Saul like, hey, this was not anything out of the normal. We've always, you know, talked to David in this fashion. Why is this any different? We thought that it was okay.
Right.
Like, you knew that he was trying to leave. So then Saul ends up killing almost all the priests. And then all the people that were in a town like Nab, I want to say it was, that was known to house the priests. There was one priest that got away, and he fled to David in the cave. And David had expressed, I want to say his name was Abimelech, I want to say. But, you know, in the cave, he was like, well, you know, Saul is pursuing me as well. And if we ever go back there, we're more than likely going to die. But Abimelech had expressed to David, you know, Saul had went about killing all of the Lord's priests. And I'm not sure if David was like upset in that moment or what. He was like, man, you know, I need to protect this dude. So loving on him in that fashion, like I am not going to let anything happen to him. You know, this person has been faithful to me. You know, they've been praying on my behalf, so on and so forth, you know, for however long. I'm going to keep him safe, or as safe as I can. And the same thing with a city that they ended up going into where they were able to hide out. There's like 300 of them in a neighboring city. I want to say it was like Keilah. I'm not sure how you say it. But they were hiding out in this city. They had just saved them from the Philistines. And they're hiding out amongst the people, and David was asking, you know, the Lord, like, hey, if I stay here, are these people going to end up dying? He's like, yes. If you stay there, they will die. Okay. If I stay here, will these people turn on me? Yes, they will turn on you. They will turn you over to your enemies. Okay, let me go ahead and get out of here. So, in that fashion, he went about loving on them, because if he had stayed there, all those people would have been killed. Right? So just thinking a little bit more above yourself at times is loving on somebody in a fashion that maybe they weren't ready to receive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wow. That's really good.
Yeah, man.
And that's a really good way to tie it all in. And you both did a really good job at it. Because this whole time, a king is stewardship.
That's right.
Right? What are you doing with the things that you're presiding over right now? Right? If you want more, what are you doing with the stuff you got already? Because if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing with the stuff that you already got, how do you expect God to give you any more? You're already showing you're inadequate with the stuff that you got right now.
Yeah.
So,
How are you growing it?
right. And what's really, man, it happened a couple times during this conversation in the middle of your stories. In my mind, I look at the king as this business leader, this guy who is able to really, my version of that king is it's like more like a business and in a monetary sense. But as you guys were talking and as you were sharing your story, I'm like, that's a king right there.
No, that was definitely a king move.
That was I'm like, that is what it's about.
Yeah.
And I had that epiphany as you were speaking. I'm like, dude, I wrote it down on my notes. I said the real kings. Because the version of the king was different for me. But then now when I started seeing, I'm like, yeah, you're right. He was looking over his family. That right there is your kingdom.
And not just trying to look for the betterment and the prospering of your family, but for this kid too.
Exactly.
So you're planting,
Yes.
the knowledge, the seed of knowledge into this kid's heart and saying, this is a better way.
Exactly.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Totally agree. King move.
Because
man.
that's stewardship over it.
Exactly.
Just like what you're saying, David has his responsibility over people.
Yeah.
And how are you serving right now? That's a really good question to position for the listeners and the viewers. How are you taking care of the stuff that you're already looking over now? If you're a parent, how are you in your relationships with your kids? How are you stewarding? How are you? You had a really good definition of stewarding that when we talked about. Do you remember? How would you describe stewarding? Or stewardship?
How would I describe stewardship? It's basically you are overseeing the lives and the hard work of the people around you, right? That you are in charge of and responsible over.
To oversee it, yeah.
You're responsible. You're reaping the benefits, right? You're the visionary, you're the leadership, what have you, and you're responsible for these people's lives and everything that they're doing. So that's great if it's going out well, right? But you're also responsible if it's not going well, and you've had to figure out why. Is it you?
Exactly.
First of all, look at you. Is it you? Because you're the head, right?
Exactly.
You're the head honcho, right?
Yeah.
Everybody reports to you.
Exactly.
And if it's not you, how do you go about it, right? Do you have to go warrior and take a life, or do you have to go warrior and know when not to take a life, right?
Exactly.
Because
That's legit.
like David, right? You were talking about the cave. There was another instance when Saul had to go in there and he had to relieve himself in the cave, right?
Yeah.
And little did they know that David was hiding in the cave.
Right behind him.
Right behind him. So what did David do, right? He wanted to make a point, but he's like, I'm not going to touch the anointed, right? I'm not going to hurt Saul. And so he sneaks up behind him and he cuts a little piece of his cape off, right? He's a warrior, one of the best warriors that we know of, but he knew when not to take a life. And just like you in your example, in your story, you knew when to keep your mouth shut.
Absolutely.
This is not the time to bring the sword out.
Yep.
Now is not the time to cut with my tongue.
Absolutely.
Now is the time for me to sheathe my sword.
Exactly.
So, king move.
Yeah, man.
Warrior move.
And in those moments, I think that we're really, sowing for the next harvest, right? Because, that kid, who knows what he's going to end up being over in his future.
That's right.
But potentially not having that mentorship previously. And now receiving it, he might be able to take this into his next lane and say, hey, this is not the way that we go about doing things here.
Yeah.
We can definitely go about doing better.
Absolutely.
This is what I expect and such. You know,
That
so
was really good, man. That was legit. Like he said, that was such a king move, because you not only solved the challenge or the issue now, but you actually set it up to be better resolved in the future.
Yeah.
You know, so you said it earlier in this conversation. King is not just about what's happening today, but how are you having that vision for the future? What's coming next? Not just think 1, maybe 2 steps, but what's 3, 4, 5 steps ahead?
Yep.
You may not be able to predict it exactly, but based off where God's leading you, based off like your knowledge and experience, what can we accurately guess
Yep.
could happen next?
Absolutely.
And the fact that you did that for this young man, I'm willing to bet that conversation is going to stick with him for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
It may not have hit as deep now,
Yep.
but when he finally has that opportunity to his girlfriend or whoever house he gets invited to next.
Yep.
When he becomes a dad.
When
Yeah,
he becomes a dad,
absolutely.
he's like, man, there was Mr. Robertson. Man, he taught me a lesson I'll never forget.
Shanked my tires.
Exactly.
He shanked my tires. Man, that was the most expensive lesson I've ever had.
Yeah,
Right.
man. Exactly.
You know,
We'll
it's like
see.
that leadership, initiative, vision. Like, dude, as you were telling your story, I was like, dude.
I'm telling you, man. But I think it's just after all the seasons that I've been through, right? Because had this happened 2 years ago, I would not have been able to get that kind of response. You know what I mean? My creek was dry 2 years ago, you know. But after getting into the Word and whatnot, being able to hang out with other Christ-minded people, you know, my creek started filling up a little bit. It's like, okay, I don't necessarily have to go about every situation, you know, ready to, you know, fight somebody or something like that. Because I was mad enough to be able to put my hands on the kid, right? I was like, let me slow down. You know, I can do better.
Yeah.
You know, type situation.
Thank God for that.
Exactly.
You know, that's such a good thing, man, because it's a blend of the warrior and the king. When you're young, like let's say early 20s, you're hot-blooded.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah.
you
You don't know any better.
You don't know
Exactly.
any better. Your initial response is to let's fight and figure this out.
Exactly.
When you become a little bit more wise and you put a couple years on, you have some wisdom. You're like, it's better not to fight you. Like
Exactly.
there's a better. You know what I mean? Like there's,
Right now.
Right
Right
now.
witnesses.
right now. Witnesses, yeah.
It's 12 o'clock in the
In the
afternoon.
afternoon. If this was at midnight, it'd be a different story.
Exactly. I'm telling
He
you.
fell down the stairs. I don't know what happened. I found him that way.
His legs turned this way. I don't know how
Exactly.
to- His kneecaps were just never there.
Exactly.
What stairs? You're in a parking lot.
I'm telling you, man.
You know, so it's like this ability to. It's important to know how to fight. And okay, was it? We just talked about this. Jordan Peterson.
Okay.
Jordan Peterson. He was saying, what are you saying about violence? Like it's
It's important to be capable of violence.
That one, yeah. Can you go on that one? Like,
So I love Jordan Peterson. Very wise man. But anywho, what he says is it's very important for people, specifically men, to be capable of violence.
Yes.
Right? Because what society needs is someone who is strong, right? Capable of violence, but knows when to restrain it.
yes.
What knows when to use it and when
Boom.
not to use it, right? Because the other side is that you have a weak individual or a weak man that is not capable of violence, cannot save the child or his wife, and
Or
can't
himself.
stand up for
Yeah.
himself or can't stand up for whatever is important in life and what have you. And that's a really sad situation to be in, because your heart might be in the right place, but
Your
your
ability
physically,
can't, yeah.
your ability is not there. But then you have the opposite,
That's
right?
legit.
Then you have the person who has no morals and is just weak-minded and also weak
Yep.
physically, right?
Absolutely.
And that being that way is just a miserable way to live your life.
Absolutely.
Or when you're young, you're capable of violence, but you don't have the wisdom to use it properly.
Exactly.
That's right.
You know, so I think that's what makes this your story of you finding your daughter in that whole situation. It makes it so much more significant because you are a man capable of violence. Like us three here, let's just be honest, we all are. And to show that type of restraint and that wisdom in that, and like you said, if a couple of years before, if that had happened, you may have responded differently. And there's a lot of things that I look at now that how I respond today as we speak like, yeah, I would not have responded to like that 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm like hot blooded, like, let's go, you know?
This is a perfect example of what meek actually means. Right? A lot of people think that meek just means quiet and reserved and can't stand up for it's the second or third example I gave, right? It's the good man that's weak physically, right? Or the morally incapable person and also physically. That's what people think of as meek, right? Just quiet and doesn't say anything. But really, if you look at the Greek word for meek in the Bible, it means strength under control, right? So you were capable of destroying the whole situation if you wanted to.
Exactly.
But you had the self-control. You had the strength and the dominion over yourself to be meek, right?
Exactly.
I'm capable of great violence. I could destroy this entire situation for better or probably most likely for worse, right?
Exactly.
But I'm choosing not to. I'm going to be meek.
Exactly.
Right? You held your tongue. You put your hands in your pocket.
Yep.
You spoke with truth, calmly.
Exactly.
That's the perfect example of being meek.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people get that confused. Oh, meek. You know, that guy's meek. You wish that guy was meek.
Yep.
Right? Or that guy wishes he was meek. You
Exactly.
know what I mean?
Exactly. Man.
That's so
See.
good. I didn't know that. Strength under control. That's such a great
Yeah.
description for the word meek.
Yeah.
It is, man.
I heard a great example of it. Imagine a horse, right? A horse, it's way stronger than you. It's way faster than you. One kick of that horse, and that's it. You're gone, you know? You put reins on a horse, and you put a saddle on a horse, and you ride a horse. Is that horse any less strong?
No, absolutely not.
Can that horse kick you off of its back if it wanted to? Oh, yeah. Did it lose any of its strength?
No.
Any of its speed? Any of its muscle? No. It's still capable of great violence. It could still do away with you if it wished. But it chooses not to. Right?
It's filthy.
So all of our strength needs to be tied in. The reins of our life, the reins of our strength, our capable of violence needs to be reined in by God.
Ooh,
I'm telling you, man.
Boy.
It's legit.
Ooh, tie it.
Yeah,
Snap your
man.
fingers for that one. There we go.
Like,
Yeah.
I remember it being so difficult to be able to do that, man. I used to be like so hot blooded. Like, even with my wife, at times, like she says something, and then I just have to bounce. You know, let me get away from here for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I'll be able to come back within like 5 or 6 hours. And it's, okay, maybe not say anything for a little bit, and then broach the topic or whatever. But you know, now it's a lot easier. It's not worth it. Yeah, I'm tired of arguing.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I'm tired of feeling, upset.
Yeah.
You know, let me take a step back and actually evaluate the situation for what it is. What did they mean by this? You know, so that's a different perspective, I guess, and that's just by hanging out with more, spiritually mature and just really, I guess, age-wise mature people.
Yeah.
You know.
It comes in time,
Yeah.
Hopefully.
But hey, hopefully that's true.
Hopefully.
You also got to seek it as well.
Yeah, you have to want
You have to want it.
to be like you said, a couple of years ago you couldn't do that, but now you're like, is this worth it?
Exactly.
It takes some critical thinking. It takes
Right.
some desire to not want to be in that situation. It's like, all right, how can I navigate this better?
Exactly.
5 minutes. Leave me
Exactly.
alone.
Because I bet something happened in those, like, what could I have done better, right? Like, something happened that was less than ideal to now you're like, yeah, I don't want to make that mistake again.
Exactly.
And until you've made that mistake over and over again and that pain has become real and you're like, yeah, I actually don't want to do that again for real. Like,
Exactly.
I got to learn from this. But if you're too stubborn to learn from your mistakes and you just keep, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
Yeah.
You are young and hot blooded. That's one thing, but if you're like middle aged and hot blooded, that's another. If you're an old man and still hot blooded, you haven't changed a bit. That's another thing.
Exactly.
That's you refusing to change
Exactly.
and seeing like, hey, it's everybody else's fault but me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Not
And
being
I-
humble enough. Sorry.
Exactly.
Not being humble enough to realize that sometimes you're wrong.
Yeah,
I mean,
Or you could be wrong right now and you don't realize it.
and it's even harder to see that as we get older
yeah.
because we're like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Exactly.
It's hard to break those old habits.
Man.
It's not impossible. It's not impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with Jesus, like he can change your heart.
Exactly.
And that is the thing that's like, wow.
I'm glad you said that because a lot of people think that we can change people. Like
No.
I can change Angelo.
Exactly.
I can change Brian. No. I can't do anything. Right.
Exactly.
Like a lot of people go into relationships. And that's another thing. They go into relationships thinking, oh, you know, I could do that. I could change that. You know, like a lot, especially I notice this with women, right?
Mm-hmm.
Women think they can go into a relationship, go into a marriage and say, oh, you know, he does this a little bit too much. Or, oh, he says the that well when he's angry or X, Y, Z. But I can change that, you know?
Exactly.
No.
No.
We can't change anything. We don't change people.
Absolutely
Only
not.
God can change people.
Absolutely
And
not.
even then, the person has to want